And we're live. Hi, I'm Jonathon Narvey. And
Hi, I'm Lyle. Neff.
oh, we're awesome at this. Okay, so this is welcome to the very first episode of the Meld PR vlog. And I'm Jonathon Narvey. I'm the founder of Meld PR. Here we have our senior writer, Lyle Neff. So hello to Lyle.
Greetings, everybody. Today we were thinking about talking about what the basics are of a PR campaign.
Sorry, you faded out for a second. Your internet went out. Internet connection is unstable.
Fucking hell.
All right, let's just soldier on.
All right, soldier on. So let's talk about the general sort of like civilian concept of what PR is, and more specifically what a PR campaign might be. I mean, I kind of have this notion that most lay people think, well, PR is about walking into every newsroom that you can find and giving out backgrounds so that they'll say nice things about your clients. But it's a little trickier than that, isn't it?
It is indeed, as we know well. So I guess I would differentiate PR from, or I would define what PR is, what we're talking about here, because it can mean different things to different people. So we do media relations. We get news coverage for tech companies. That's our specialty, our niche. So, what is the simple way to define what a PR campaign is in terms of media relations? It comes down to three buckets of activity, I would say. Number one is coming up with the story you want to tell. Hopefully not made up from whole cloth. You've got something that you need to say.
For sure. Yeah. There's always a narrative to be found, right? I mean, one thing about PR is that, you've got a company, a client who's going along and just, taking care of business and doing the stuff. And you think, well, there's not a lot of news coming out of that. Like, where are we going to find a hook that's going to make reporters and people in general interested? And as we have found, have we not? There's always a hook. There's always a story. There's always a narrative. There's no brand without a narrative, really.
Right. So, I want to say, I wanted to define the three buckets and then get into each of them.
Yeah.
So, let's say that if the first bucket is coming up with the actual story, the second part is the media targeting, list building, and the third part is doing the actual outreach to get results. So let's get back into the first part we were talking about a moment ago. We were talking about you can always find a hook, but let's talk about story as a few things. Number one, who's your audience? And when we're talking about media relations, you actually have three different audiences that you need to appeal to. Number one is the reporter. The one that you're actually going to be interacting with. They are the gateway, the gatekeeper to getting your news out there. The second audience is, of course, your ultimate target market, who you want reading that news clip about your company. And then there's a third audience that's even maybe more important than the first two. It depends on what kind of company that you are in, what your company culture is. But that important audience is the person who is in charge of that company. So the CEO or the CTO, or potentially the head of marketing. If you can't get it past them, if you can't get the green light from them, this press release is never going to make it outside of your company.
Exactly. From the PR person's perspective, there are these three target audiences that have to be satisfied. And it seems fairly obvious to say, like, well, you have to satisfy your client. But the thing is, a lot of business people who are involved in like making buying and selling and hiring, firing decisions don't have the slightest clue exactly what it is they want. They just know what they don't like. So trying to satisfy a PR client It can be a tricky business because, well, as I was saying before, there's certain myths and ideas people have about what PR actually is. One of our first jobs when we sign a client is to say, like, no, this is what it actually is. And it's also true, is it not, that a client's going to have to participate, that CEO or that CMO or whoever they make available to us.
Yeah. Well, we need their help. It's not something like you hire a PR agency and they magically come up with a story on your behalf. What could these stories be about? So it's going to depend on your industry. Of course, we cover the tech industry, so a lot of our coverage that we're trying to get for our companies is around they've launched a piece of software, or they've launched a product that's super cool. It's a new robotic device, or it's an AI powered B2B tool that helps you optimize your business, or it's a service that helps other tech companies do what they do. And it's what you want with a story is, ideally, it's something that kind of sells itself. It's not overly, like, even for the tech sector, we don't like stories that are overly technical. You have to be able to connect with people on a human level. So for instance, if you're launching a piece of software, well, what does it do? How does it matter?
Right.
What is cool about it? And you want to be able to get that across in the subject line, and very, very, very quickly.
So you have to know it well yourself. So before you launch a PR campaign of any description, unfortunately, we deal with some, I would say, fairly complicated products and services. And you and I, who are not computer people, have to go in and learn about it. And sometimes just making sure that you're intimately familiar with that product, well, it's definitely the first step in any campaign, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's not to say that we don't know the industry. Like, obviously, we've been working with tech companies for a long time. So
when I said we're not geeks, I guess I meant I'm not a geek. Is roughly what I was saying, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was very lucky early on to have a mentor who sort of showed me the ropes on how to talk tech, and I guess I reciprocated by helping him to align his messaging with actual human beings. So we worked very well together. In fact, we still work well together. So
sure, yeah.
So I think we're getting. We've pretty much covered, what goes into a story. It's know your audience. Actually have something that is going to resonate. So it's, do you have actual news? What is coming out? And also one last thing, and then you can riff. It doesn't have to be like, sometimes your news is actually latching on to other news that's already out there, and it's just, here's our take on this, or here's our service that ties into this thing that everyone's already talking about.
That's where some of the real artistry and creativity in this field can come in. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, PR, in my limited experience, is very much a grind. There's a lot of just day-to-day laborious stuff, building lists, making phone calls that you have to do. But where it gets to be fun is when you start digging around for that narrative. And the process you're talking about, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this word, is newsjacking. If there's no story because the company is just going along and doing its thing and making money and being a company, there's still other things going on in the world that relate to that company and its product and its services. And so we can tie that in a newsjacking kind of way. Think of an example, Johnny?
Why don't you go ahead?
Well, okay, I'm going to do this because it was a very successful one, and I'm quite proud of it. We have a company that, how to put this discreetly, has a service, it's a network service. We wanted to get across that in times of crisis and emergency, and this was before it actually became a time of crisis and emergency. So again, there's this a thing of timing and luck in this business. Anyway, we said that you could use our client service even in the event of a zombie apocalypse. We built a little campaign around that. We were newsjacking not to the virus itself, of course, but just to, I think we started off with the California wildfires. So we did this little ha-ha thing. You could actually do this in a zombie emergency. This product is a great thing for that. We put out a press release. We did all the little grinding steps, and it kind of took off just because we tied it to the return of the Walking Dead, if you'll recall.
Yes.
Yeah, the biggest show on TV. So that's an example of newsjacking. We're just, what's happening this week? Oh, the biggest show on TV is returning. And this company here has got this product that would be of great use during an emergency. And then, somewhat ironically, I suppose, an actual emergency came along, which allowed the campaign itself to really take off. It's a very popular page now, even months later on the client's book. It's been retweeted dozens of times. It's a very successful PR campaign and an example of newsjacking.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that sort of covers it from, how you come up with a story. You want to tie it into what's happening right now. And then the next part of a campaign is, as I said, list building, doing your actual media targeting. So you can actually create an effective PR campaign potentially with not a very large media list, actually, if you know what you're doing. Now, we do have some campaigns that stretch into hundreds of reporters and editors and TV producers and radio producers. But if you're looking to get news coverage in a particular magazine or maybe, let's say your niche is transit or something that's maybe not super sexy, but maybe there's a dozen or maybe 24 trade publications and other maybe podcasts, vlogcasts, other things that are relevant to people in your industry. So whether that's
Sure.
your fellow founders or the audience would be users of that service.
Well, there's a little world I always find when you start digging in. Like some of our clients are fairly niche, but I've come to realize that niche, for example, software that you use to operate transit systems, started digging around in that and realized there's this whole little world of urban planners and transit operators and magazines and newspapers and YouTube channels where they convene and they meet. And I like discovering these little worlds when you get into it, especially with some of our more esoteric clients. And even clients that we haven't actually signed sometimes come from very odd corners of the tech universe. And even though sometimes I grind, I always take a great deal of joy in like, wow, check this out. There's this whole, it's like reading a really good in-depth magazine piece, where you get to know the jargon and the lingo of, I don't know, bird fanciers in southern Italy or something. It's a little world, aka a niche, and you go in, you find out about it, and you pitch reporters and journalists in there too. But then you get to become part of that little world. You kind of join the niche. That's what's fun about a campaign, I find.
Yeah, you really get to go down a rabbit hole and learn new things.
It's like Wikipedia or something.
So just a pro tip for companies that are looking to, say, build their own media list to target reporters that speak to their audience. We use special software to make it easy for us to find reporters around the globe, segmented for different industries and topics and beats. But if you want to do it quick and dirty, just go onto Google, type in some keywords that have to do with your company and the story you want to put out, find some stories that are sort of similar, and start noting the names of those reporters and start hunting for their emails, which aren't always easy to find, but occasionally you'll find them on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Well, that's why I'm kind of laughing, right? Because it seems like something that any schmuck with who has access to Google should be able to sort that out. We were talking before about we're going to hit like big lists of journalists and so forth. Getting those lists, even with the specialized marketing software that we use, is not easy. You have to use Google plus the software, and the third component, of course, is your own knowledge. Just things that you and I, over several months of working together, we must know hundreds of different journalists in different sectors, organizations, newspapers, outlets. Around the office, it's just stuff that you and me and the rest of the team, we're just kind of talking about it all the time. And it just goes into your head like osmosis. So a new client comes along, or someone comes up with a hot idea for a new newsjacking thing, and you can go into that knowledge that you already have. And as a fairly young company, I think it's kind of groovy to think of the future when perhaps we're bigger and so forth, and we have more institutional knowledge. And that's going to allow us to craft more and better campaigns. It's not just the software, it's not just Google, it's knowledge that you already have in your particular sphere.
Okay, well, I think we've covered the first two buckets of a PR campaign pretty well, which is coming up with a story and then doing your media targeting. And then the final component is your actual outreach. You have to email reporters, and you're gonna do, you're gonna do.
I don't know why I'm batting.
you're gonna do an initial blast, probably an e-blast to a number of reporters. Now, if your list is super targeted, you can probably just do personalized outreach, custom emails to every single person on your list. But you're going to get diminishing returns if your list is several hundred or more, and it takes time to do this right. And by the time you would get to reporter number 100, you'd already be like a week or two out from your initial release, if you're doing it right. So you'd have to, if you do have a big list, put together a list of the journalists that you really, really, really want. The not the nice to have, but sort of the must have list. And these are the people that you're going to do not just an initial blast to, but you're also going to do follow-ups with by email, possibly by phone. That sort of that can get really good results, but you have to sort of finesse that. You got to be picky about who you call.
Every niche that we're talking about has very important key figures in it, and with any amount of research, you're going to quickly find out who those key figures are. And boy, you do not want to piss them off. Even if they're amenable to your story, they're interested in your client. What we have to find out about is what reporters are interested in. And fortunately, Google and marketing software provides us with a fairly easy way to do that, because what's a reporter interested in? Almost certainly reflected in what she's been writing about recently. So you take a search for your topic, find those reporters, then you dig deeper and you say, okay, who's the actual leading voice on this topic for this market, for this niche? And make sure and find that person and treat them nice.
Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. We've run through the three buckets of running a PR campaign, media relations. And that is coming up with a story, doing your list building, and then doing your actual outreach and follow-ups. And if you've covered those bases, then you may very well succeed in getting some media coverage.
That is the basics of a PR campaign.
Yes. Okay, well, we touched on a number of other topics that we're going to actually deal with in full in future vlogcasts from Meld PR. But Lyle, Neff, always a pleasure. And
John Narvey,
talk to you again soon.
All right, my man. Goodbye.